Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to introduce our speaker. Today's speaker is Frank Agin. Frank is the founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, which is a national organization that assists professionals in creating a forum that they can exchange qualified referrals with other entrepreneurs and other professionals. Frank has a law degree, an MBA from Ohio State University, and a BA in Economics and Management group from Beloit College in Wisconsin. He has written numerous articles on networking, is the author of several networking books. He is also an avid fiction writer, with 2 novels to his credit, Out of the Comfort Zone and Rival. And with that, I'd like to introduce Frank Agin.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. As Kathy has indicated, my name is Frank Agin. I'll give you a little history of myself. I came here to go to law school in 1984. Yes, I do have a law degree. Don't hold that against me. I came here from the state of Michigan. You can't hold that against me. I've been here a long time. I realize how lonely Novembers can be. My wife's a big Buckeye fan, and I just can't shake liking the Wolverines. I started my career, I went through Ohio State. I got a law degree and an MBA from the Ohio State University. Started my career with a very large firm downtown, an accounting firm, Coopers & Lybrand, and I was a tax consultant. I was with them for 6.5 years. I hated every minute of it, except for the 24 days a year I got paid. But after 6.5 years, which will tell you I'm slow but not stupid, I decided to leave, and I decided to go into private practice. And a funny thing happened to me when I went into the private practice of law. And the funny thing was that nothing happened. I started my career in public accounting where marketing and client acquisition was simply going down to the corner office and kissing up to the boss. And those of you who are in small business realize that doesn't work in small business America. You've got to get out there and you've got to hustle to get business. So I literally spent the first month in private practice organizing pens and pencils on my desk, creating forms and procedures for clients I didn't have, and at one point getting down on my hands and knees. Not begging, but I was jiggling a little phone cord that went in the wall because I was convinced the phone wasn't ringing because there was something wrong with the phone. Well, there was nothing wrong with the phone. I just wasn't doing what I needed to do to generate clients. So I had lunch one day with a friend of mine who was also an attorney. One thing you'll know about attorneys is that the only friends we really have are other attorneys. But at any rate, I asked her, I said, what do I need to do to be successful? I don't want to go asking for my job back. I want to be a successful attorney. She said, you need to get into a tips club, a leads group. Well, make a long story short, through a couple of introductions, I was introduced to an organization that brought together entrepreneurs, sales reps, and professionals on a weekly basis where they learned about each other and exchanged referrals. I got into that organization, and I'm making a really long story very, very short. I got into that organization. I liked it so much, I had an opportunity, I bought it. That was about 10 years ago. At that point, I stopped the practice of law. I haven't done any law in about 10 years. I feel like an alcoholic every time I say that. But what I do now is I spend my days working with entrepreneurs, sales reps, and professionals, trying to help them become more successful through networking. I do a fair amount of public and professional speaking. The difference between public speaking and professional speaking is nothing more than one you get paid and the other one you don't. This is public speaking. This is not professional speaking. But the program's the same if you happen to ever have to pay to hear me speak. I have written books. I've written books on networking. I do a lot in the community, getting out and talking with job transition groups, helping people who are displaced, executive mid-level managers moving from one job to the next, trying to become a better network. Networking is what I do. Now, if you've been around, and certainly looking around the crowd here, it looks like most of you have been around. And I mean that in a good way. Or if you haven't been around and you have meddling parents, and most of you have probably had meddling parents, you've heard the statement, it's not what you know, but who you know. Right. It's not what you know, but it's who you know. But I contend that it's more than who you know. Networking is really about relationships. It's about interacting with the people around us. And I know that it's more than what you know, or it's more than who you know. Growing up, or in my public accounting experience when I was miserable, looking to find a job, my mother told me, said, you ought to reach out to your Uncle Dick. My Uncle Dick worked in Chicago. My Uncle Dick sold computers for IBM. He was very well connected in the Chicago area. But I didn't want to reach out to him because I wanted to do it on my own. But there's a perfect example of I knew somebody. I knew somebody who could really help me, and I didn't reach out to them. So it's really not what we know, and it's really more than who we know, because we all have connections within our lives we don't tap into. And if you come away with nothing else today, what I ask you to come away with is this, an understanding of this, is that people do business with those that they know, they like, and they trust. All things being equal, we will do business with those we know, like, and trust. There are probably people here today sitting and they do business with each other because you know each other, you like each other, and you trust each other. Plain and simple. You probably know that it might be insurance, it might be legal service, it might be accounting, I don't know what it is, but you probably know that you could get a better deal elsewhere. I have an insurance agent, I like my insurance agent, I trust my insurance agent, I know I can get cheaper insurance. I won't leave him. Why? I know him, I like him, I trust him. So that's everything with respect to networking. And if you come away with nothing else, that's really what you need to know, is it's all about know, like, and trust. What I'm going to spend the balance of my time on, for those of you who are lucky enough to get a handout, are 7 things that you can do to help you become better known, more liked, and more trusted. The first thing is never stop giving. I call networking a great bait and switch, because it really is. People come to networking because they want to get business. But what they find out in a hurry is that in order for them to get business, in order for them to get referrals, in order for them to get whatever they want from networking, maybe it's contacts, maybe it's information, whatever it might be, before they get those things, they've got to give first. In my organization, we keep track of who gives referrals, who gets referrals, and we've kept data for the better part of the last 10 years. And there is a true correlation between the people who give the most, get the most. Why that is, I can't really explain, but people who give more in life tend to get more. And when I'm talking about giving, it's not always just reaching in your pocket and grabbing your wallet and throwing around some paper or some plastic. Giving takes on all sorts has all sorts of different faces. You can certainly give by giving finances. But you can also give by making referrals, introducing people to others, sharing information, all sorts of different things that you can do. Giving somebody your time, encouraging people, those are different things that you can do to give to other people. And when you give, you establish a relationship with them, a better relationship. They can't help but know you more, like you more, and trust you more. So that's the first thing. Never stop giving. The second thing, every contact has opportunity. I know we're all guilty of this. We're all guilty of dismissing people as being of little consequence in our lives. It might be the person who takes your dry cleaning. It might be the receptionist or the security guard down in the building that you go into every day. It might be somebody. But we're all guilty of dismissing somebody of being of little consequence to us. And we may not give them as much attention, may not give them as much respect. I know we're all guilty of it. I know I've been guilty of it. Now, when I first started my career in public accounting, and I was driving downtown, the only thing I owned was that car. I drove it. Now, I had an apartment, I had clothes, big deal. But the only thing I really owned was that car. I guess I really didn't own that because I had another 60-some payments for make to the dealership before I really owned it. But anyhow, I loved my car, and I was very particular about my car. It was nothing great. It was an 88 Chevy Cavalier. It had windows that you had to do this. You all remember those sorts of windows? So it wasn't a great car, but it was my car. And I was very particular about where I parked that car. And so when I was looking for options to park my car near Capitol Square, which where our offices were at, I didn't want to pay too much because I was a new associate. And I didn't want to walk too far. And there was one particular parking garage that was close, and it was relatively cheap. And that's the garage I picked to park my car. But there was a catch. There's always a catch, right? Well, the catch was that you had to leave your keys. They were going to basically park and move your car. Every day they would maximize how many cars they were going to pack into that thing, and so they were going to determine where your car might be or might not be. Who knows? Well, Lord knows where my car went during the day. But anyhow, that really kind of unnerved me at first, and how I got over it was this: is I decided that I was going to get to know these parking lot attendants. I wasn't going to be just one of the hundreds of attorney-type faces that were coming and going day in and day out. So every day, when I was handing my keys off before I saw a parking lot attendant, I would just stop and say hello. I would smile and just give them the time of day. How's it going? And I can tell you a lot of funny stories about interacting with parking lot attendants for 6.5 years. One I will share with you. One day I came in, parked my car, and there was a gentleman there. His name's Dwayne. And Dwayne stopped me. He said, "Hey, Frank, what are you doing this weekend?" I was single, no kids, nothing. "I want you to be the best man at my wedding." So that day at lunch, I got fitted for a tux, and I was the best man in this guy's wedding. It was me and his mom down at a little church, it was a big church in Lancaster, and the other side of the church was filled with the bride's family. I was the only boy, the only kid this guy had in his life, other than his wife, and I am still friends with him. He friended me on Facebook, so it's really kind of a unique relationship. But anyhow, but that's not my story. That's just one to kind of get you guys.
Are they still married?
They are still married. Yes, yes. They come out to my kids' sporting events. I go out to their kids' sporting events. It's interesting. But anyhow, there was another woman there, and she's the person who took the keys every day and put them on a board. So if you're parking in space 37, you hung your keys on space 37. That's how they kept track of it. Her name was Twyla. I certainly remember that. I don't think she remembered my name. She called everybody Honey. And I was okay with that, but everybody was Honey. And this is what I knew about Twyla, other than her name. I knew she was 37 years old, at certainly one point in our relationship. I knew she had a daughter, and I knew her daughter was in a modeling agency, and I knew she had a granddaughter. And that was enough for me to carry on a conversation day in and day out. "Hey, how's your daughter doing? How's the modeling going? How's your granddaughter?" Grandmothers love to show pictures of their grandkids. So every day we had this conversation. Mind you, there are hundreds of attorney types coming and going every day. One day she stopped me and she said, "Frank, how would you like to be an extra in a movie? They're shooting a movie up in Upper Sandusky and they need attorney types to be in the movie." Did I tell you I hated my job? So I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to be discovered. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be an extra in a movie. So I told her I wanted to do it. She came the next day. She had all this information. She told me where I needed to be. I told a buddy of mine, that, "Hey, you want to do this with me?" He was an attorney as well. Again, the only friends we got are the attorneys, right? So anyhow, that's next Saturday, he and I went down to Cord Camera, went down to his offices, got our pictures taken. I was really dressed up. I had a suit. I was really dressed up in front of all the law books. I looked the part. If they were looking for attorney types, I was the guy. My buddy was the guy. So we had that done. Went to Cord Camera. Had all these things with the film developed. Didn't have digital cameras back then. Had the film developed. Put these portfolios together and got in the car and we headed up to Mansfield, Ohio for the casting. So we got to the casting and the room was about this size and it was kind of, I call it Disney-esque. They had the turnstiles and they had you kind of going through the turnstiles and it was just packed with people. And right away I'm like, you know what? We're shoo-ins. These are biker types. They're looking for attorney types. These guys are biker types. They don't stand a chance. Look at us. So we're going through the turnstiles and we're talking to people and somebody's like, "Oh, it's a Stephen King movie." I've never read Stephen King. I don't think I've been to a Stephen King movie. I don't care. I'm going to be in a movie. So we're continuing along, and as you're doing the turnstiles, you're kind of talking to the same people, and so we pass again. And the guy says, "Well, the name of the movie is Rita Hayworth," or something like that. Well, the name of the movie was Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, and they shortened it to The Shawshank Redemption. Show of hands, how many people have not seen the movie Shawshank Redemption? Oh my God! You guys, hey, get that bucket.
You're the other guy.
You guys need to put a bucket. If you haven't seen The Shawshank Redemption, you guys need to put a bucket. It is a great movie.
This is the first time I've been fine, but
It is. Normally I'll bring that DVD and hand it out to the one or two people that haven't seen it. It's a great movie. So, but I don't know this at the time. I'm standing in line. They're looking for attorney types, right? So most of us have seen The Shawshank Redemption. Opening scene, Andy Dupree is in the courtroom, right? He's being convicted of the murder of his wife and lover. I'm not in that scene. I got cast as a prisoner. I spent an entire day in the opening prison yard scene. But the neat thing about it was I got to spend a whole day with Morgan Freeman. I got to hang out with lots of people. I mean, it was just, I sat on a park bench with Morgan Freeman like I'm sitting here today, just having a chit-chat. But the point to all that is that was all driven by me stopping and saying hello. It was a great opportunity, and I earned that by just saying hello and giving somebody a little attention and respect. There were hundreds of attorney types that came and went that day in my existence there, and I was the only one who got that. Every contact has opportunity out there. So ask yourself, who's the Twyla in your life? Who's the person you might be dismissing? Not everybody's going to be your next best client, going to be your next star employee or employer, but everybody's connected to somebody who can be. So remember, every contact has opportunity. The next thing is there's no shame in asking. We all remember the events of 9/11, and we all have different impressions of 9/11. The impressions for me with respect to 9/11 are this. We as humans want to help one another. We really do. We're hardwired to help each other. It may not seem like it at times in this world, but we really want to help one another. And that day, there was such an outpouring of support from people really around the world. There were stories of people in Manhattan who were begging for money as people were walking into the Twin Towers, were the same people who were helping people, fleeing for their lives. We want to help each other. The only thing separating you from getting the help you need, and I don't know what help it might need. You might be clients, it might be information, it might be something, whatever it can be. But the only thing separating you from getting the help you want is asking. People don't know. People don't know. But if they find out that you need something, they'll help. And I'm not saying you need to, hey, send me a client, give me business, give me a job. But certainly reach out to people and ask. Again, I shared the story about my Uncle Dick in Chicago. I should have asked him, would you look at my resume? Would you recommend people I could talk to? Give me some advice. Those are the things. People want to help you. They want to help you. And to be honest, they won't be put out. They'll be flattered if you ask. And by asking them, they will know you more, like you more, and trust you more. Next thing, work to get involved. When I first started in private practice, I joined an organization called the Ohio Business Brokers Association. It's an association here in town that helps the people who are there help people buy and sell their businesses. As a young attorney, it was perfect for me because a lot of these people who are buying and selling businesses don't have attorneys. So I figured I'd get involved in this. So I joined up, and I was with that organization for 2 years. And I remember after 2 years getting an invoice for another year of my dues. And I remember telling my wife, I said, you know what, I'm not going to get involved anymore. I'm just going to get out of this. I've been there for 2 years. I've gone to every monthly luncheon, and nobody even knows me. You know you're in trouble. You know it's bad when everyone calls you Buddy, and your name's not Buddy. And that's where I was. I went to the luncheons. I was the only attorney there, but I was Buddy. Hey, how you doing? Sometimes I'd get a counselor, but it usually was a buddy. Hey, buddy, how's it going, buddy? But anyhow, I went to one more meeting, and when I went to that one more meeting, someone raised the notion of, we're a 6-year-old organization. At that point, they were 6 years old. They're still in existence. We're a 6-year-old organization, and we really need to take a hard look at our bylaws, our code of regulations. These were kind of just thrown together 6 years ago, but we're really becoming a viable organization. We need to really take a look at this. Do we have all our legal T's crossed and all our legal I's dotted? Of course, at that point, everybody's head in the room turns to me, a.k.a. Buddy. And the president of the organization said, would you be willing to help us get this stuff squared away? Not being one to say no, I said, yeah, I'll do that. Signed up for another year, and I got on a committee to help them revamp their bylaws, all their legal ins and outs of the organization. Well, immediately things started to change. I was instantly transformed from Buddy to Frank. And then another thing happened along the way. It's hard not to like somebody who's trying to help you. I was helping this organization. I was volunteering my time. I was sitting on a committee with other people who were realizing that, I was just like them. I may have done something different, but I had a house. I had a mortgage. I had an electric bill. I had kids. I I had the same things they did. We were similarly situated. It's hard not to like people when you realize that you have things in common. So they know me, they like me. And then it started. They started to trust me. I'd get calls from brokers. Hey, listen, I'm working on this deal, and they've got attorneys. I can't work you into it, but I got a question. It doesn't seem right. And so they'd ask me a question. I'd give them my best advice based on what I knew. Wouldn't send them a bill. That was always big. And then slowly I was getting clients out of it. People would call up. Hey, listen, I got a client. I've got a client I'm helping to sell a business. They don't have an attorney. I've got a client. They're looking to buy a business. We've got one. They don't have an attorney. I got a lot of business out of that because I got involved. You need to get involved. You need to get involved in your community. I think it's great that you're in Rotary. Some of you are in Rotary and involved in Rotary. Some of you just belong to Rotary. Some of you belong to a church, and some of you are really involved in a church. Some of you belong to things in your community, and some of you are really involved in things in your community. Here's the test. If you weren't here today, would you be missed? And if you wouldn't be missed, you're not sufficiently involved. Find a way to get involved in this. Because when you get involved, not only do people get to know you, like you, and trust you, but you raise your level of exposure. For whatever reason that is, you raise your level of exposure. So find a way to get involved here. I'm not saying you need to be president. I'm not saying you need to spearhead something. But there's some way, somehow, that you can help this organization or help a organization, help your church, help your kid's school, whatever it might be, and you'll do yourself a huge favor in the process. One connection at a time. I see people out networking, and I step on my cord here. I see people out networking, and they're trying to pack as many new people into their lives as they possibly can, and it doesn't work. Question: show of hands. Don't worry, no dollars. How many of you are married? Raise your hands. All right. How many of you have more than one wife or husband? Raise your hands.
It's illegal.
Well, I know it's illegal. Yeah, and I know in Utah there's some crazy guy with 17 people. But the reason we have one spouse is because you can't have that kind of relationship with more than one person. And it's the same thing when you're out networking. If you're going to a networking event, if you're at a networking event, you can't develop a relationship with 15 people over the course of an hour. You need to focus on developing relationships. Same thing here. When you come here, don't feel like you need to meet 10 new people. One new person a week is huge. Or one new person a month is huge. When you're going out to events, one new person is plenty. Networks are built one relationship at a time. These are just contacts, these are relationships. So as you're out there networking with people, just focus on one person at a time. My wife's kind of an introvert, and when she goes off to conferences and that, I tell her, I said, here's your job. One person. You don't need 5, you don't need to meet 5 people, just one new person. It's pretty easy to do that. Next thing, reconnect often. If you're between the ages of 19 and 90, 19 and I think, do I have everybody covered in that? Do I have anybody under 19 here? Anybody over 90? All right. If you're between the ages of 19 and 90, you know more people right now than you're going to meet over the course of the next year. Think about it. You know more people now than you're going to meet over the course of the next year. Presumably, many of you have been to high school, or finished. All of you have been to high school. Presumably, some of you have been to college, maybe grad school. You know people from that. You've lived in multiple neighborhoods, or lots of people have come and gone from your neighborhood. You've had jobs. Even if you've only had one job, I talked to a guy who had a job for 37 years, but the people around him are constantly changing. You know tons of people. Now, if you're 19 years old, 19 and under, you're still running around with the same 6 guys or gals that you went to high school with and doing those sorts of things. And, that 17, 18, 19-year-old is going to go off to college or go off to their career, and they're going to meet a ton of new people. So they're going to meet a lot of people over the course of the next year. Now, if you're 90, you know a lot of people, but you're at that stage in life where you're kind of forgetting. So you're meeting the same people, but you already know them. But you're between 19 and 90, you know a ton of people. So if you know all these people and you're out networking, you don't feel like you need to be meeting new people all the time. There's a tremendous value in reaching out to the people you already know. Stop and think about the people you already know. If you're looking for information, if you're looking for contacts, if you're looking to network any way, shape, or form, stop and consider the people you already know. All right, I don't need to know the year. How many people have been to a high school reunion in the last 5-10 years? I went to my 30th high school reunion. I'm dating myself. Went to my 30th high school reunion and ran into people I hadn't seen in 30 years. It was like no time had passed. They already know me. They already like me. They already trust me. They just need to get reacquainted with what I'm doing. So when you're out there networking, focus attention on the people you already know as well. Reconnect with those you already know. Last thing, keep after it. When I was about 6 months into being in private practice, I had lunch one day with a friend of mine, and she, at that point, was a financial advisor and has since sold her practice and is now a professional speaker. But her name was Angie, and I had lunch one day with Angie, and I was sitting there talking to Angie, and I was kind of commiserating. Things were going okay. They weren't going great. I left a really good job. I didn't like it, but it was a really good job. And I was kind of commiserating to Angie. I'm like, I don't know if I made the right decision. I was making a lot of money. I had great benefits. You know, right now it's like I'm nowhere near where I was a year ago, and I don't know if I'll ever catch back up to where I was. And so I was kind of commiserating to her, and she stopped me, and she started to tell me a story. She told me a story about a speech that she gave 5 years earlier. She gave a speech to a group of AT&T execs and just talked to them about their retirement and that. And one of those execs who was at her speech called her the week before we met. And she said, you know, Frank, this guy called me, and he said, you know, Angie, I didn't need you 5 years ago, but I need you now. I'm getting ready to retire. And then she went on and to tell me about all the money this guy had. You know, he was an exec, he'd been with AT&T for years, and the people he knew and all the money they had. Well, there's really nothing worse in the world when you're trying to feel sorry for yourself and somebody's giving you all this great news about themselves, right? And I didn't say it, but I know it was written clearly on my face, and what was written on my face was this: well, goody for you. Because she stopped me, and she said, you don't get it. You don't get it. You haven't been doing what you're doing for 5 years for things to come back to you. And she's right. 5 years after that point, things were happening in my life that were set in motion at, around that time. I'm standing here today because of a contact, we'll call it Wolf. Wolf introduced us. A contact that was made back in 1995. Networking works. It really does work. And I'll finish up with that. Networking works. It doesn't always work when you want it to work. You go out to a networking event, you hope you're meeting clients, hope you meet a new employer, whatever it might be, and you don't meet anybody, but you get the great tip on that vacation of a lifetime. Networking worked. Didn't exactly work how you wanted it to work. Didn't work. Doesn't always work when you want it to work. You do something, 20 years later something comes out of the woodwork. Doesn't always work where you want it to work. You go to a networking event thinking something's going to happen, and then all of a sudden you meet somebody at the convenience store. It's going to throw you business. But networking works. It'll always work. Thank you.
Frank, maybe you can stay afterwards to answer any questions that people have.
Absolutely.
But again, in recognition of your presentation today, our club is going to donate a book in your name to one of the schools at which some of our members do tutor.
Well, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right.